Welcome to Mystery Vault, where we dive deep into the hidden chapters of history. Today, we explore one of the most mysterious and enduring enigmas in early American history, the disappearance of the Roanoke Colony. What happened to the first English settlers in America, and why did they vanish without a trace? Join us as we unravel the mystery of the lost colony of Roanoke, one of history's most perplexing tales. It was 1587 when a group of English settlers, led by John White, arrived on the coast of what is now North Carolina. This colony was not the first attempt at establishing an English presence in the New World. In fact, this was the third attempt. Both previous expeditions had failed. The first English settlers, led by Sir Humphrey Gilbert in 1583, had established a colony in Newfoundland. But harsh conditions and lack of supplies forced them to abandon it. Then there was the ill-fated attempt by Sir Richard Grenville in 1585, which also ended in failure due to lack of resources and conflict with local Native American tribes. By the time John White's group arrived on Roanoke Island in 1587, England had invested a significant amount of time, money, and energy into trying to establish a permanent settlement in the Americas. Sir Walter Raleigh, the sponsor of the expeditions, was hopeful that this attempt would be different. He had big dreams of creating an English stronghold in the New World Zone that would serve as a base for further exploration and trade with the indigenous people. But, as we would soon find out, this colony faced the same, if not greater, challenges than its predecessors. The settlers were not prepared for the harsh realities of the New World. When they arrived, they found the land to be less hospitable than they had hoped. There were food shortages, unpredictable weather, and strained relationships with local Native American tribes. As tensions grew, resources dwindled rapidly, and the settlers faced growing despair. In a difficult decision, Governor John White realized that the colony needed more supplies to survive. He had no choice but to return to England to procure reinforcements. He left behind a colony of about 115 people, including his daughter, Eleanor Dare, and his granddaughter, Virginia Dareth, first English child born in the Americas. The situation seemed dire, but White hoped that England would be able to send a rescue mission to aid the struggling colony. But he faced a huge setback when the Spanish Armada launched an attack against England in 1588. This attack delayed White's return to the colony for 3 long years. England was preoccupied with defending its shores, and the supplies White needed were not immediately forthcoming. Finally, in 1590, after 3 years of delay, White was able to set sail back to the colony. But when he arrived on Roanoke Island, he found that nothing was as it should be. The colony was completely deserted. The homes were abandoned, the crops were left untended, and there was no sign of the 115 settlers who had once inhabited the island. White was desperate for answers. He searched the island and the nearby areas, but the only clue he found was a single word carved into a tree: Croatoan. Croatoan, the name of an island just south of Roanoke, as well as the name of a local Native American tribe. But what did it mean? Was it a signal left by the settlers? A desperate message that they had relocated to Croatoan Island? Or was it something more cryptic, a warning, or even a final plea for help? But despite the tantalizing clue, White's search for the settlers was in vain. He returned to England, and no one ever found any trace of the colony again. The mystery of the lost Roanoke colony would become one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in American history. Since that day, many theories have surfaced regarding the fate of the Roanoke colony. Some of these theories are more plausible than others, but all attempt to shed light on this tragic and perplexing disappearance. The first theory suggests that the settlers were attacked by Native American tribes. Tensions between the English settlers and the local tribes, particularly the Powhatan Confederacy, were already high by the time White left for England. Some historians believe the settlers may have been killed in a violent attack by these tribes, who were wary of the growing English presence. However, there is no direct evidence to support this theory. No bodies, no signs of mass graves, no eyewitness accounts of a massacre have ever been discovered. If there had been a violent attack, it's likely there would have been some physical evidence left behind. But White reported no signs of violence when he returned just an eerie emptiness. Another theory is that the settlers simply relocated to Croatoan Island. After all, they had carved the word Croatoan into the tree, and it's reasonable to assume that this was a signal to future visitors. Perhaps the settlers, facing the same challenges as before, decided to move to a more fertile and safer location. Croatoan Island was inhabited by a friendly Native American tribe, and it may have seemed like a more sustainable place to live. However, when White's expedition attempted to search Croatoan Island, they couldn't find any trace of the settlers. The island was thoroughly scouted, but no remains, no signs of European settlements, and no survivors were found. There's also a more speculative theory. The settlers might have been absorbed into local Native American tribes. Over time, reports surfaced from later English explorers about tribes in the area that seemed to have European features. They spoke English, wore European-style clothing, and even adopted some European customs. Some historians have suggested that the Roanoke settlers, facing overwhelming hardships, may have integrated with these tribes, slowly losing their identity over time. But, like the other theories, there is no concrete evidence to prove this. No historical records exist that confirm the settlers' integration into Native American culture. Instead, all that remains is a tantalizing question mark. Over the centuries, the mystery of the Roanoke Colony has captivated the imaginations of historians, archaeologists, and even amateur sleuths. Despite numerous expeditions and ongoing archaeological digs, the disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of early American history. What truly happened to the lost colonists? Were they victims of a tragic fate, or did they find a way to survive and adapt in an unforgiving world? Today, the legacy of the Roanoke Colony lives on, not just in the history books, but in the cultural memory of the United States. Every year, new theories emerge, and new evidence is uncovered, but the truth remains as elusive as ever. As we reflect on this mystery, we are reminded of how much we still have to learn about our past. Perhaps one day, new discoveries will reveal the fate of the lost colony. Until then, it remains a haunting question from history, waiting to be answered. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more forgotten legends and unsolved mysteries from around the world.